What happens when the version of yourself you've been building up within your head your whole life is completely destroyed? When the fake persona you've been putting on to appease the people around you is stripped away from you, and your lack of identity is all that's left to show to others? Well, in this case, you're left with Natsuki Subaru, and what I consider personally to be the best explicit representation of character growth within all of media. In a medium that is, to say the least, filled with overpowered main characters and rather surface level character arcs, Subaru stands out alone. Whether you love or hate Natsuki Subaru, I hope that by the end of this video, I can convince you and show you why his growth and his journey of character is one of the most riveting experiences within all of media, and shows just how far a character can really come. With all of that being said, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, it helps big time, and let's get into the video. Before we can even begin to discuss Subaru's growth and identity within the world of ReZero, we must first look at the person he was before being isekai'd. And within ReZero Season 2, we are able to get a unique glimpse of this. Within the episode Parent and Child, we are explicitly shown Subaru's lack of identity, and the struggles this caused for him, and the basis for it, that being his father, Kenichi, who, to say the least, was held in very high regard within Subaru's life. Whenever Subaru did or acted in any sort of way, the constant comparison of him being like his father was present. And as we delve deeper and deeper into that episode, we see the subtle but traumatizing experience this leaves Subaru. These constant comparisons to his father Kenichi led Subaru believing that there was a lack of purpose within his life. He felt as if there was always a pedestal and something that he could never fully achieve because he felt that he could never really live up to his father's name. This consistent pressure to live up to his own father's name led Subaru down a bit of a rabbit hole, in which we see Subaru try to conform an identity in many different avenues, whether that be being the funniest, being the loudest, being the most daring person, and he explicitly says this led him down to stupider and stupider things. This is why when Subaru is initially summoned into the ReZero world, this is a breath of fresh air for him within a sense. As Subaru is once again being met at a crossroad, he is given a new chance and a new opportunity to develop a new name and identity for himself. Nobody within the ReZero world knows who Kenichi is, and that burden is finally lifted off of Subaru's shoulders. For Subaru, it's a fresh restart, and any label given in a previous life is now gone. And now with this basis, this gives us the ReZero we know and love as we follow this iteration of Natsuki Subaru down his journey of understanding what really is identity and where that comes from. In turn, we follow Natsuki Subaru through the first couple arcs of ReZero, in which he must learn the hard truth that just conforming to an identity is not possible. And what I mean by this is that you cannot change yourself as a person and make yourself be who you want to be unless you change deep down inside. This harsh truth is something that Subaru heavily struggles to handle. We are immediately shown when Subaru is isekai'd within the ReZero world, he automatically tries to put on a new identity and thinks he's going to be special for some sort of reason. The first couple arcs of ReZero are built around Subaru coming to terms with this. Subaru's true identity and how he really feels at himself is subtly hinted at to the reader and the people within the ReZero world as we progress to arc 3, in which, to say the least, Subaru's character slowly unfolds and becomes more and more of a shell of the person he was trying to be, or rather I should say the identity he was trying to fake. On top of this, the mental burden of an ability like Return by Death, in which Subaru cannot tell the people around him the stuff he's going through and the things he has to deal with, only makes the situation worse. We are subtly given a bit of a hint of this in arc 2, where we see Subaru almost quit on his goals and essentially give up, to the point where this identity he is trying to fake and put up drives him to near death, in which he is only saved by Amelia when she finally gets sick of it and realizes that he needs to be emotionally vulnerable, in which he finally is, which shows a more realistic side of him and gives us a bit of a glimpse to that true Natsuki Subaru and the true identity that lies within. In which Subaru's actions henceforth within arc 2 and what inevitably happens within the village, whether they were based on this fake hero complex or not, leaves a lasting impression on a character like Rem, which we'll get into later. Henceforth, we move on to arc 3, in which we see Subaru's identity crisis and fake personality come forth more than anywhere else than his argument with Amelia, in which Subaru goes forth and projects every insecure thought he has upon himself onto her. And we are finally beginning to see what Subaru considers the true character of Natsuki Subaru. From that point forward, we see Subaru run in circles within arc 3, in which he doesn't want to come off of this identity and be honest with the people around him, and would instead rather latch onto the idea that he is Amelia's savior and that she's wrong and crazy for critiquing him, in which we see Subaru go through some of the worst events within ReZero, and driven to borderline insanity, we finally get from Zero, where we as the viewer are finally get to see Subaru explicitly say that he hates himself, and how this whole time within the ReZero world, he has been faking his identity, and deep down inside, he is still the same person he was before he got isekai'd. Despite all his efforts to be a hero and to be a different person, Natsuki Subaru realizes that deep down inside, Natsuki Subaru is still that same person. And above all, Subaru still hates himself. In turn, we finally get to see Rem's perspective of Natsuki Subaru, where she is able to explicitly comfort him and conform him and let him know that no matter how bad he thinks Natsuki Subaru is, she knows deep down inside that's not who Natsuki Subaru is. Which we go back to Subaru's actions within Arc 2 and where he saved Rem essentially, While Subaru knows and feels deep down inside that this saving and his actions were built on the false complex of him trying to be a hero, and essentially he only did these actions to fit a certain mold for the people around him, Rem, to say the least, could care less. Because whether Subaru had pure intentions or not, from her point of view, Subaru moved forward and was able to save her. And that his intent is not what matters, but rather the outcome. A theme often commonly reiterated throughout ReZero is that it's not about what matters in the start or the middle, it's how it all ends. Essentially though, Rem is inevitably able to get across to Subaru that before he could stick to any sort of identity and be any sort of person within this world and start from zero, he needs to learn how to love himself. In which that's only when Natsuki Subaru can begin to form his own character and be his own person and love the people around him. From this point forward, what I consider the prologue of ReZero ends, and we are finally actually able to see the real beginning journey of Natsuki Subaru from zero. Although the identity crisis and themes presented from it are not done yet, as inevitably after the end of Arc 3, we see Rem's memories and name get eaten and everyone in the world forget about her. That singular pillar of hope for Subaru that he was latching onto is inevitably gone. Now that Rem is inevitably gone, that self-hatred Subaru has for himself rears back in within Arc 4, where Arc 4 reflects the purpose that Subaru must come to the realization that he can rely on the people around him, and the connections he makes with the people around him are what conform that identity that Rem gave him to begin with. Characters like Satella and Otto are able to explicitly tell Subaru that this infliction of self-hatred upon himself is extremely selfish, and that for his life to truly have value and have meaning, regardless of an ability like Return by Death, Subaru must make connections with the people around him and use those connections to his ability. This leads to Subaru finally making real connections and friends within the ReZero world, and inevitably leads us to the progression that is Arc 5, where we inevitably see Subaru better off than ever before. A great example of this is the very beginning of Arc 5, in which we see Sirius commit her atrocities. Only after 1 or 2 deaths, Subaru is able to immediately realize that he should tell Beatrice about what's going on. Arc 5 is inevitably able to serve the purpose and show us an explicit and realistic representation of the growth Subaru has had up until this point within the series. Not only Subaru, but also the side characters, but that's a story for another day. Inevitably though, this leads to Subaru barely dying within Arc 5. Because when Subaru is able to understand the fact that he can rely on the people around him and conform his own identity and be the person he wants to be, build those connections of love, Subaru is given an identity. This identity and purpose within life is able to make it so Subaru doesn't have to use an ability like Return by Death. So taking all of this into account and the growth Natsuki Subaru has gone through up until this point within the series, the character arc and the journey he has been through, all the countless deaths, all the progression he's made, this all penultimately leads us to Arc 6. And Arc 6 spoilers ahead for anime onlys, make sure you guys read Peak and catch up because you're really missing out, but we see Natsuki Subaru and this character that has been built up through all of these events, all of these arcs inevitably get erased as gluttony eats Subaru's memories. This Arc 1 iteration of Subaru is brought forth once again, in which, keep in mind, came into the ReZero world with that identity crisis, constantly being compared to his father, having to live with the burden of constantly being in the shadow of somebody that people regard as great and amazing. Well, now that supposed great and amazing person is not only his father, but another Natsuki Subaru, in which now, instead of being compared to the great person his father was, Natsuki Subaru has to be compared to the great person that Natsuki Subaru is. We see the sheer thought of Natsuki Subaru doing all of these acts drives Natsuki Subaru to borderline insanity. This Arc 1 iteration of Natsuki Subaru's self-hatred delves so deep that the sheer thought of him doing all of these acts and being this supposed great person doesn't make sense to him, and he's living in a hell once again. For all of these people within Arc 6 to constantly be wavering the connections that they've made with Natsuki Subaru, it drives Natsuki Subaru insane, and it's one of the reasons why I love the Gluttony if so much. To see this iteration of Natsuki Subaru go forth and do the things he does and kill everybody around him to read their Book of the Dead so he can conform his own identity so the people around him will just like him and he could understand who Natsuki Subaru really is honestly amazing. But getting back on track to the main point, with the inevitable help from the people around him, such as Emilia, Natsuki Subaru is inevitably able to progress forward. We get a scene that is reflective of the first arc of ReZero, which is honestly amazing, where Subaru asks for Emilia's name, except this time it's Emilia asking for Natsuki Subaru's name. And being pushed into the limelight by the connections with the people he's made around him, we see Subaru ultimately be able to progress forward, which penultimately leads us to this scene right here. I still believe to this day that this is the greatest scene within ReZero. The supposedly amazing and awesome Natsuki Subaru that this Natsuki Subaru has been hearing about this whole time is able to comfort and comfort this Natsuki Subaru and tell him he's an amazing guy. My favorite thing about this is taking into context that this supposedly amazing Subaru that honestly the readers have been tricked into a bit at this point within Arc 6 if you read it, is just the regular Subaru we're used to. The same one where if you went and did this to the same Subaru from a couple arcs ago, whether that be the Arc 3 or Arc 4 Subaru, would be in almost certainly the same exact case that this amnesiac Subaru is within. within. So being able to actually see him tell himself that he's an amazing guy is honestly amazing, especially considering where his character had just been. Because deep down, we as the viewer and the reader are the only ones along with him to know how that real Subaru actually feels most of the time. He is finally able to come forth and recognize all the great things he's done. And finally, that point that Rem was trying to make to Subaru oh so long ago within Arc 3 comes forth. That whether he's failed over and over again or his intentions may be a bit selfish, that the impact Natsuki Subaru has left on the people around him is who make Natsuki Subaru. And that while Subaru may view himself as scum, everybody around him views him as amazing. In which we see this Natsuki Subaru come to the realization and get a own good look at himself and be able to tell himself that, hey, look, you're amazing. To have this Natsuki Subaru be able to tell himself that he is important, he is amazing, and he is honestly a great guy to be valued, and the connections he's made are there to stay is honestly so amazing. And how Tappei was able to conceive such an explicit representation of character growth like this is something that I will never be able to understand. Like, the writing is fucking peak on levels that are hard to even describe, but anyways, it is just so effortlessly able to tie back into that theme of ReZero about loving yourself, in which the identity of these two is combined, and we see Subaru able to progress forward within Arc 6. This leads me to talking about the end of Arc 6, in which after you've made your main character have such a pseudo conclusion like this only halfway through the story and have so much growth and development, where do you go from here? How does Natsuki Subaru move forward and continue to grow and continue for his character to be interesting? Well, you take the person that started this journey for Subaru, that being Rem, bring her back and erase her memories, in which we see Subaru having to deal with the person that he has based his entire journey on the past couple of arcs not be that person anymore. The person that led Subaru to even be able to get to this point to begin with and be able to tell himself how much he loves himself, not be that person and not remember. We only get this conflict touched up upon more within Arc 7 and Arc 8. We follow Subaru within a new land, and within this land, nobody knows of him. Well, at first, obviously, because Al and Priscilla do show up, but he's in a new land with the person that started his whole journey for him, and the other person being Louis Arneb, who made him come to this full realization and this full circle, while also being the person who caused all that pain and struggle for Subaru within Arc 6. This is especially hurtful for Subaru as this iteration of Rem does not care about him. Well, she does, but not in the same sense that the old iteration of Rem did in any sort of way, and is bonding with and siding with the person who brought him all this hardship and pain. To the point where this iteration of Rem is able to call out Subaru's hero complex and explicitly tell him that he's not a hero or any sort of person, and this crushes Subaru for a bit, to say the least. But as we progress through Arc 7 and Arc 8, we see Subaru go through multiple different identities and multiple different stages. Natsumi Schwartz or Shota Subaru. Through this and through the people and the connections he's able to make within this new land, we see Subaru learn how to deal with this. Where if Rem was telling him that beforehand, it would have completely crushed him and taken everything out of him. By the end of Arc 8, we see Subaru learn how to deal with this. And despite not being Rem's hero anymore, Subaru is able to be a hero to the people around him, in which we see him go forth and lead the battle within Arc 8, finally being able to become a fully realized version of himself. In which that's where we're at with Natsuki Subaru's growth right now. I'd also like to touch up upon, Rem's confrontation of Subaru about his hero complex, and the lasting effect that this left for the end of Arc 8. Spoilers ahead for Arc 8's ending if you haven't read it yet. But within the ending of Arc 8, we see Subaru willingly choose not to save Priscilla and let her die. This completely shatters Al, which henceforth leads to the events of Arc 9, but that's a different topic. What I want to touch up on is Subaru's penultimate decision to not go forth and save her. This was brought about by the events of Arc 7 and Arc 8, and Priscilla's comment that made Subaru freeze. That being that there are people happy within this world with how it ended up being. And for Subaru to go back and erase that would be extremely selfish. So we're left off with Priscilla passing. All of this being built upon Subaru's hero complex, maybe and potentially finally deteriorating a bit. Which does, like I said, set forth the events of Arc 9, in which Al, somebody who constantly critiqued Subaru for this hero complex, seals Subaru. It's honestly quite ironic and very twisted for Tappei to do this, as Subaru was finally only able to come to this realization when the person who confronted him about it the most didn't want him to. But as of right now, that's where Natsuki Subaru's character growth and journey ends up. As we watch as the people Subaru has inevitably made all these connections with are trying to save him. And who knows what type of role Al has with this and the potential of him being the same person as Subaru. That would just add a whole nother layer to this identity and hero complex problem. Overall though, Natsuki Subaru is amazing, and to this day is the best representation of character growth and development I have seen within media. And to say the least, his journey's not even over yet. To start off as a fool lacking any sort of purpose within yourself, and to come forth and be able to comfort yourself and the person you are, and explicitly tell yourself I love you, is honestly just amazing. Overall though, that'll do it for the video today. Subaru is an amazing character, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this analysis, and yeah, that's about it. Subscribe, leave a like, it really does help big time. And yeah, peace.